Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to NFR. And it's a Sunday evening, so it's time for SKR. Obviously, Season 8, Round 3. I'm sure everyone was watching not so long ago the Austrian Grand Prix this afternoon, and what a Grand Prix it was. Now we get to do it all again with SKR. It's going to be a hard act to follow, though. Of course, no quali. Tonight is a sprint night, so we go straight into the sprint race. Reverse championship order. We will have a formation lap, so we'll get a chance to have a look at this starting order. 13 runners in the field. Harsh Cartoon is going to lead the way. Stoffel P2. Cole finds himself at the head of the second row, then Chums. We have Smurf, Divan. Then we start to get the quick drivers lower down, because those are the drivers leading the championship. Pantherstar P7, Mr. Rem P8, Spikes P9, got Andre P10, and then Top Gun, Virus, and Convoy. They're going to be starting from the rear of the field. Expect lots of action. It's a short racetrack, this. Guys managed to get around here really quickly. Of course, 3 DRS zones, so expect lots of overtaking. What an Austrian Grand Prix we had this afternoon. I don't think anyone had their money on George Russell. But a fantastic battle to watch. Now the drivers begin to line up for the start of the race. Would have had that formation lap just to get tire temperature, brake temperature, so that you can head off into turn 1 with a little bit more confidence. Yet again, we've got a terrible camera angle for the start of the race. And that is a terrible camera angle. There we go. So, Stoffel from P2. We get a better one. There we go. Stoffel will hold the lead into turn 1. Then we've got Skull, Stoffel, Chums. Lots of switching of positions here in the early stages. Lots of side by side. And have to wait at least until the end of this lap to see where everyone slots in. The Williams going over the curbs there, losing all sorts of momentum and losing some places. So Chums down to P6. I think I saw a yellow flag flashing, so someone off circuit. Pantherstar P7. Then we've got the 2 Red Bulls, Mr. Rem and Spikes P8 and 9. Hopefully a better night for Red Bull than it was an afternoon. Arch Cartoon leads the way, 7/10 of a second in the early stages. Very important here in Austria to stay within DRS. Got 3 DRS zones per lap on what is a really short lap time. Arch Cartoon from Stoffel. Then we've got the bright green Salva. Divan in P3. Salva is only a Salva in name. Audi actually took over full ownership of that team earlier on in the year. The rebranding will only come in 2026. Liban up into P2, Stoffel down into P3. Now we've got Skull in the Aston Martin looking to hold on to P4 at very least. Wants to make up positions. So tantalizing from a position like this here in P4, but you can see the leader, he's there. We're in the same frame as the leader. Skull goes to the inside, thinks about the move on Stoffel. That's as close as you can get without losing your front wing. Close racing here at the front. This is what Austria can produce. Lap after lap after lap. Skull does break up into the podium positions. Nicely done. Now in the top 3, his next opponent would be Divan, 1.1 seconds up the road. Divan in a battle for the lead with Harsh Cartoon. The gap between the two, just 0.2 of a second. Lots of overtakes happening in the middle. Pantry Star going wheel to wheel with Stoffel. And we've seen somebody going backwards in the back. Somebody's gone backwards in the background. Was that Chums? No, it wasn't. It was Smurf. That was one of the, or the only Haas driver rather. Good afternoon for Haas in Austria. Double points finish. Andre sets the fastest lap of the race, 106.1. Osh Cartoon still leading at the front. Divan still P2, but for how much longer? He's getting impatient, goes towards the inside, and hopefully there's lots of room. Yes, there is. A little bit more respect than what we saw between Verstappen and Norris. And Divan gets into the lead of the race. Osh Cartoon P2, Skull already looking towards the inside of that Ferrari. Just had a look, tucked in behind the Scarlet Red Ferrari once more. Still a long way to go, 12 laps. Rather 8 laps to go of the 12. Of course, sprint race means no pit stops unless you get any damage, but you shouldn't be visiting the pits. This is a race from beginning to end. No strategies involved. Now Convoy sets the fastest lap of the race. Osh Cartoon has managed to get back into the lead. Here in Austria, it's a track that it's difficult to get away. So many DRS zones. You make the overtake, then the car behind you's got all sorts of DRS just to stay there with you. After a while, he's going to come back at you. We've got a caution, and I think hopefully that's all it is. Harsh Cartoon leads the way. Caution disappears from our screens and we can breathe a sigh of relief. Divan in P2. As I say that, it starts flashing yet again. Stoffel P3. Is that Pantry Star losing a few positions? Falling down the order. Everybody on a set of mediums, so everybody choosing the exact same strategy. Software obviously not going to make the distance around here. Actually saw some very high tire deg in the race this afternoon. Medium runners, guys that started on mediums, some of them came in as early as lap 12 in a 71 lap race. It's a lot of tire deg. At the front we still have Harsh Cartoon, followed by Divan. We right on board with the Salva. 4/10 of a second. You want to get as close to that gearbox as you possibly can just before the DRS zone. If you can't make the move into turn 1, you line up for the next DRS zone, and so on. And the next thing you know, you're back at the start finish line. That's what's so fantastic about this Red Bull Ring. Short circuit, fast circuit. Lots of DRS, lots of overtakes, and sometimes complete madness. Convoy into the lead of the race. Divan P2, Harsh Cartoon P3. Actually looking for Skull. Where is Skull? He was P3 at a stage. He's now slipped down the order. He's in P8. Is he in that car? Or is that, seems like he's in the car. Let's have a look if he's got any damage. Doesn't appear to be the case. But Skull losing his way from P3 down to P8. Now your new leader is Convoy. We saw him set the fastest lap of the race about 2 laps ago. He leads from Divan 4/10 of a second. Like we mentioned, difficult difficult to shake off the opponent when he's got 3 DRS zones per lap, even if he's not passing you. It's quite easy to stay with the driver ahead. And a big lock up there from Conboy, just trying to get the car stopped. Of course, I apologize to the drivers if they're not locking up. I'm just going according to what we see on screen. And if I see a lot of smoke into a corner, I presume you locked up. Divan getting awfully close. 7/10 of a second. Harsh Cartoon, he led the race. He started the race from pole position. Led the race for a while. Now down in P3. He's been able to maintain his spot at the top. Andre, P4. Not so long ago, Skull was in P4 and he fought his way into the podium positions. Now it's the other Aston Martin's turn. Andre, P4, looking at a top 3 result in this sprint race. Of course, that will translate to a top 3 start in the feature race. Now side by side and easily passed before the corner. Andre up into P3. He can start trying now to chase the 2 ahead of him. Divan, P2, Conboy. So close to now breaking that DRS. And Divan has to do everything he can to stay within it. And as I say that, there we go. It just pops over the 1 second mark. Go a little further back to look for some battles, and there we go. We've got a Red Bull. That is the Red Bull of Mr. M. Not exactly the best afternoon for Red Bull. We all saw what happened to Max Verstappen. But somehow, he was still ahead of Perez. In fact, if you want to be mean, you could say that Max had to do an entire lap on 3 wheels and he still beat Perez. Oh. Conboy at the front, Divan P2, so no change in the order. Andre still in P3 and he's close, he's within DRS of those 2 ahead of him. So the race looked like it was starting to spread out, but now the top 3 coming back together. Mr. M in P4, but he's got a bit of a queue forming behind him. Stoffel, P5, Harsh Cartoon, P6, then Spikes, P7, all of those cars within DRS. And the man who started from pole said he was maintaining his top 3. Well, now he's starting to fall. He's in P6, coming under all sorts of pressure. The one Red Bull just got past him, now the other Red Bull is trying to get past him. Ooh, and there's contact. There's contact. It seemed like there was contact, or the Red Bull was just trying to get out of the way. Seems like we had contact. And we have a caution flashing on our screens. Hopefully all the cars are underway and we don't have anyone off circuit to trigger a safety car. We haven't had one yet. In fact, SKR last week we had no safety cars and it was the only race of the week that we had on this channel with no safety cars. Let's see if they can hold on to that record here. Conboy leads the way, Divan still P2, that gap within DRS. Remember, Divan fell out of DRS, the gap went all the way up to 1.2 seconds. He's been able to reel him back in and he's brought Andre along with him. So we've got a battle of 3 cars for the lead of this race on the final lap of the sprint race. Any one of these 3 could win. Divan has DRS, Andre has DRS, your leader will have no DRS. So, who's it going to be? Now Divan late on the brakes around the outside, very nicely done. But it's going to be a traction race out of the next corner. And can Conboy come back at him? Can Andre steal the position here? The order remains Divan, Convoy, Andre P3. Such a short lap. Pantry Star's just gone over the line to set the fastest lap of the race, but he's not in the points. That is as a result of those soft tyres. And around the penultimate corner, I think this will be the order for the race finish, unless anybody does something crazy in the final corner. And there we go, it's going to be Divan from Convoy, Andre P3. Then a bit of a gap, 5 seconds. Then Mr. M P4, we've got Stoffel P5, Harsh Cartoon P6. He started from pole position, don't forget. Spikes P7. Skull ended up in P8 after being briefly in a podium position. Then we have Top Gun P9, Virus P10, and then Smurf, Pantry Star, and Chums making up the field. That was fun. I hope you had fun. But that was just the beginning. Of course, that was our sprint race. It's basically our qualifying session. Now we're heading off into the feature race. So these results will also be your starting order for the feature race. Divan takes the victory, Convoy P2, then we've got Andre P3, followed by Mr. Rem, Stoffel, Harsh Cartoon, Spikes, Skull, Top Gun, Virus, and then Smurf, Pantry Star, and Chums. Of course, now we head off into the feature race. If that sprint race didn't go according to plan, this is your opportunity to make it right with the information you've learned from that sprint race. Seems like we will be making a new lobby for the feature race, but you can stay with the stream. So now we will simply have to make a new lobby for the feature race. Grid will quickly be set and we'll be back underway. One thing it does do is it gives the drivers a little bit of a breather. Sometimes the start of that feature race can come a little bit too soon after the sprint race. Just have a few moments to just take everything in. Give me your predictions for the feature race. Are we going to see more of the same? Are we going to see the same top three? Of course, we saw some drivers have a really good pace, but at some stage in the race they made an error which put them much lower down the field than they should have been. Those drivers will have another opportunity in the feature race. Remember, Andre was in P3 with his Aston Martin, but at a stage there was an Aston Martin quite far ahead of him, and that was Skull. Skull obviously got onto the podium positions for about a lap or two and then made a mistake that we didn't see. And for the rest of the race he was maintaining that P8. For those of you who are just joining and you don't see a race in front of you, we are just setting up a new lobby. And there we go. So there is your field filling up again quickly. Remember, we just had the sprint race that would have worked as a qualifying session with a few bonus points. Just a little bit more frantic than your average qualifying session, because you're going wheel to wheel with drivers every other lap. We had 13 runners in the original start. I presume we'll have the same amount of runners unless anybody was unable to make the start of that sprint race and they can squeeze in now. Death Queen again showing support for Andre and Skull. That's the Aston Martin team. Of course, good result for the one Aston Martin in the sprint race. Podium position. Skull was still able to bring home the other Aston Martin for that solitary point for 8th place. Of course, in the sprint we only score down to P8. I believe Stoffel has just joined. I think that is the 13th runner. So we should be underway. And look at that, someone has come in. I believe it's Rhino. I don't think Divan had a teammate. So Rhino has been able to join. That means we're going to have 14 runners going into the feature race. Rhino will probably have to start from the rear of the field. Seems like everyone is in a car. Just now waiting for everybody to ready up. And we'll be underway. The second race of the evening. Of course, we're currently in sync with the actual F1 calendar, so we're doing Austria this evening. Next week F1 heads to Silverstone, and so does SKR. Be another opportunity for me to commentate on a track I just watched. See now everybody readying up there on the right hand side. We're going to be underway shortly. Feature race around the Red Bull Ring. Of course, the first Austrian Grand Prix was not held here at this circuit, but it was held very close by. In fact, it was held just across the road at an airfield. Drivers weren't too fond of the circuit. Austria risked falling off the calendar, and then they built this place. Of course, not so long ago, this track fell into disrepair, fell off the F1 calendar, and then it was really heading south. That's when the Austrian-based company Red Bull purchased the circuit and brought it back to its former glory. And of course, Red Bull are also looking to get Grade 1 status for the original layout, which means there is a possibility that we could get the original layout back. Would add about half a kilometer to the circuit. Still very, very quick circuit. In fact, it will be a little quicker than it is today. Of course, one thing the drivers had to deal with this afternoon that our drivers won't have to deal with this evening. It's turns 9 and 10 having a little strip of gravel on the outside. Might as well enjoy it. I'm sure by the time the next game comes around they'll add that in. For knowing these developers, might take them a few more seasons than that. Of course, if you're just joining us, we didn't have a qualifying session. We had a sprint race to determine this grid. Now we're ready to go for our feature race, just coming to the end of a formation lap. That order you see on the left hand side, that is the order they finished in that sprint race. So Divan, Conboy and Andre in the top three. Mr. Rem starting also there on the second row. Then Stoffel, P5, Harsh Cartoon, he was the pole sitter in the sprint race. He's going to be going from P6. And we've got Spikes, P7, Skull, P8, Top Gun, Virus, 9 and 10. And then outside the top 10, Smurf, Pantry Star, Chums, and Rhino managed to get in right at the end. So we've got a Selva at the front, we've got a Selva at the rear, and we've got a whole lot of fast drivers in between the two. No predictions for this evening. I have no idea. So many quick drivers, so many DRS zones. Really, anything is on the cards. Now we wait for the red lights. There we go, we can hear them, we can hardly see them, but there's the 5 red lights. When they go out, we'll get underway. And there we go. Fantastic start there from Conboy. Just the superior traction up into turn 1. I even looked at the screen to see if he had a pair of softs on that car. No, he doesn't. He's on mediums, just like the drivers around him. But fantastic start by Conboy. Leaps into the lead of the race. Divan started in pole. Well, he wasn't in the lead by the time he got to turn 1. Mr. Rem, P3. He's made up a position early on. Andre's gone down a position from P3 to P4, but he's on a set of hard tyres, so playing a different strategy to the cars around him. Then we've got Stoffel in P5, he's followed by Spikes P6, then we've got the pair of Scarlet Red Ferraris, Harsh Cartoon and Virus, P7 and 8, then we've got the 2 Mercedes, race winner from this afternoon. Got Top Gun and Pantry Star, 9 and 10. Skull, he's fallen out of the points for now, he's gone into P11, started the race P8. Chums P12, Rhino's made up a position since the start, he's in P13, and Smurf makes up the field at the end of lap 1. Conboy still out front, The gap 1.1 seconds, so crucial. We spoke about it in the sprint race, to stay within DRS of your opponent. It's really so tough here in Austria. You could potentially be 2 or 3 tenths faster than the car behind you, but if he's got that DRS constantly, 3 separate DRS zones per lap, just so difficult to shake off that driver behind you. It's one thing to make the overtake, it's a whole lot more difficult to shake them off. Divan P2, Mr. Rem, made up that position on Andre early on, hasn't been able to make up another. He's just managing that P3 for now. He set the fastest sector 2 of the race, so the Red Bull definitely does have the pace. Divan P2, and he's just holding on to that 1 second, and I think he was out of DRS that time around. Divan over the line, fastest lap. He's immediately beaten by Mr. Rem over the line, fastest lap. All 3 of these cars lapping very quickly, but Convoy at the front, 9 tenths of a second. He's pushing, he's pushing, he's pushing, but every time he sees that gap drop below a second, he'll be getting so frustrated. Of course, the full distance race would be 71 laps. We're just doing 56 this evening, but if they're as frantic as the first 3, I think these guys are going to be quite tired by the end of it. At the front, Convoy, 7 tenths of a second. Then Mr. Rem, much closer to P2 than Divan is to P1. That Red Bull will attack eventually. There we go, Divan running very wide around the final corner. He'll probably get a warning for that. Always puts you off as a driver. Remember, you get 3 warnings for going over track limits. After that, you do get a 3-second penalty, and if it's in the early stages of the race and you see that warning pop up, sometimes just play on your mind, especially if it's not the first one. We've seen in the past what happens when you rack up the penalties and then a late safety car comes out. Destroys any chance, any hope you had of finishing in a decent position. Going to be so important for these guys to stay out of the penalties column. Now Convoy just over a second ahead of Divan. Divan not able to stay with Convoy, and this might be the reason. It's coming under all sorts of pressure from the Red Bull, so you're trying to stay with the car ahead of you, but you're trying to defend from the car behind you constantly, lap after lap. And now all of these cars still within DRS, but nobody quite close enough to make a move. Let's go further back to Top Gun. Top Gun was very close to the back of Stoffel. Stays behind him for now, but he's going to get DRS again, as does the car ahead of him. Of course, they're in a DRS train. Everybody's going to have DRS except the car out front. Oh, and he'll take that. He'll take that. Williams, Stoffel pushes Virus wide. Both cars leave the circuit, and Top Gun goes up into P6. Similar to the George Russell situation, really. Mercedes sitting back, saying, have your fun. And once the fun goes wrong, there's, well, I'll take that. Very nicely done. Top Gun up into P6. Spikes P5. Andre still in the hunt for a podium. Remember, he started in P3, then got passed by Mr. M in the early stages, but he's been able to maintain that P4. And crucially, there is a gap down to P5. Remember, Andre is on a different strategy to the cars around him. Those 3 cars ahead of him all on the medium compound, which makes it even more impressive that he's able to hold on. He's the only one on the hard compound, which means he's going to be going slightly longer into this race. If he's able to maintain this sort of distance to the top 3, those top 3 will start to have tyre problems long before he does. So this race could yet come to the Aston Martin driver, Top Gun P5. He had a gap to Andre of 5 seconds. He's since closed it to 4.7, so the Mercedes is on the move. Spike's using all of the racetrack on the outside. Got to be so careful. Want to stay within the lines. Virus P7, we just saw him, and I believe it was Stoffel, both going off circuit. In the second Ferrari, Harsh Cartoon, he led the sprint race for 3 or 4 laps, still holding on to the points in P9. Ooh, and now we've got a caution flashing across our screens. We look for the culprit. Is anybody falling down the order? And luckily, caution disappears yet again. Now at the front, all sorts of mayhem. Convoy still leads the way. Divan still P2. Mr. M still P3. I'm saying there's mayhem. They're in the same order. So much action. Every time we approach a corner, you see someone duck and dive. You see someone think about it. So tempting. Just do the dive bomb, do the lunge. But you've got to think long term. It's only lap 8 of 36. And Stoffel becomes the first driver of the evening to pick up a penalty. We said how important it is to keep that column clean, especially in the early stages. Lap 8. If you continue to drive on those current racing lines that you're using, well, you're going to have a lot more than 3 seconds by the time we get to the end. Up front, Convoy still leads the way. He's been leading the way for an awfully long time. You think he'd be comfortable by now, but he's not. He's dragged those 3 behind him all the way. Top 4 runners all within DRS of each other. Convoy, Divan, Mr. Rem, Andre at the rear of the queue. Remember, Andre the only one in these top 4 with a slightly different strategy. Of course, when you do go for the hard compound, the last thing you want is a safety car in the early stages of the race, because you're planning to go deep into the race. Andre, Mr. Rem, Divan into the lead of the race now. Convoy finally succumbs to the pressure. But he's got a lot of battery still in that car, so he's going to come right back at the leader. Maybe some tyre management. Or maybe just succumb to the pressure. Leading for so many laps with the same 3 cars in your mirrors. Eventually a mistake will come. But now Convoy will have DRS. He's going to get close, but not close enough. He's going to get DRS yet again. And there we go. Is he going to be as brave as Lando Norris? Well, he's not going to need the lunge. He's done it well before the corner. And the Alpine, immediately back into the lead of the race, was slightly concerned if he'd be able to get it stopped, but he got it stopped quite easily and still managed to get a good exit of the next corner. Now Divan, who's been chasing this lead, really hard, got the lead briefly. Convoy snatches it away yet again. We have a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That is for Chums, so both Williams drivers now in the wars when it comes to penalties. 3 seconds for Stoffel, 10 seconds for Chums. I think he's... Ooh, and we've had a spin. We've had a nasty spin. That was Andre. Andre does a 360 around the final corner. He's going to be able to get it going again. He's in P4. But surely the Red Bull's going to come right at him. So Divan P4 at risk of falling even further. And the Red Bull is going to have the superior grip. It's going to have the superior speed. Divan's just trying to get going again. Surely those tyres aren't going to feel great immediately. Going to have to run them in a little. Get some temperature back into the rubber before you can attack again. Nasty spin around the final corner. Of course, we saw something similar in quali with Yuki Tsunoda, but that was him just putting a wheel on the gravel around the final corner and swiftly getting thrown across the racetrack, narrowly missing the pit entry. That could have been a disaster. Convoy leads the way. Now Andre has gone up into P2. That is as a result of him being on that hard compound. Remember, he's going to pit a little later than the cars around him. So Andre up into P2, Spike's up into P3. He's also on the hard tyre, but quite the gap there between the Aston Martin and the Red Bull. 4 seconds, give or take. Convoy leads the way. He was coming under all sorts of pressure from Divan. Divan was matching him lap after lap, applying the pressure, even took the lead at a stage. Convoy was able to get it back. And then Virus around that final corner, that final high-speed corner. Just spinning the car all the way around. And now he's down in P5 with a lot of work to do to come back into this race. Luckily for him, it's not a sprint race. We will get a pit window. Strategies will change. Things will happen. If we have a safety car or any other sort of madness, he can still come back into this race. Just needs to get his head down, forget about the incident, and think about it after the race. Now Divan looking to come back into this race. He's going to make his first overtake as he looked to get past the Ferrari, but the Ferrari didn't make it easy. And Divan's going to remain in P5 for now, but looking dangerous. You can imagine the adrenaline after being in the fight for the lead within DRS for so many laps, then suddenly a spin, and you've got to just forget all of that, get back on the tarmac and start chasing all over again. He's done well to hold on to P5. Sometimes we just see drivers getting so frustrated and make that one mistake and then more mistakes follow, and we just see them gradually fall towards the bottom of the field. But so far we still have all 14 runners we started with. Convoy, he is your leader, but he is struggling to hold on to that lead. Now Andre, I think the track is finally coming to the hards. The mediums now starting to fall off, it appears. Andre didn't look like he had the pace for Convoy earlier on. Now all of a sudden Convoy can't hold on. I think that's going to come down to the tyres. Of course, Convoy started on the medium, Andre started on the hard. When those mediums do begin to fall off, the hards will still be in a comfortable range. But Convoy has not come into the pits. As for Virus, Virus has had enough of the medium compound. He's on his way into the pits. His teammate goes around one more time. Obviously, fear of double stacking. Those two cars appear to be on the same strategy, but they're not going to take the risk of pitting on the same lap. Then we have the second of the two kick Salbers. Double points finish for the Salbers. Big Rhino in P10. Remember, he started at the rear of the field after missing out on the sprint race. Not due to a DNF, rather to a DNS. He did not start the sprint race. Started from the rear for the feature race. He's been able to make up 5 positions. Started on the hard compound. Different strategy from his teammate up front. Ivan went on the mediums, fought for the lead for a very long time. Now finds himself in P4, but quite a ways away from where he was, almost 6 seconds adrift from Andre. Andre led the race briefly. Convoy came back at him. We thought maybe the track was starting to come to the hards. Maybe Convoy would start falling backwards and Andre could grow that gap, but that has not been the case. Convoy did get back past. Now Andre, yet again with DRS, is not close enough to think about it, not this time round. No one behind him. Just needs to focus on this battle. These two cars though on different strategies. Andre would be very happy if he was able to get past at this point. Convoy still able to match him on the mediums for now. Do we see a pit stop? No, we don't. The Alpine stays out. Taking those mediums a lot longer than I expected. Divan, he's had enough of the mediums. He's coming in. Now Stoffel. Let's see if Stoffel dives into the pits as well. Yes, he does. So all the medium runners have now come in to get rid of their mediums, except for the medium runner that leads the field. Everybody done with their mediums. Glad to see them go. Convoy is still driving around at the front going, what's wrong with the mediums? He's battling for the lead. He's just lost that lead to Andre, but he's going to fight back immediately. We've seen him do it before, and I'm sure he's going to do it again unless he peels off into the pits on this lap. There's no evidence of him peeling off into the pits because he's racing that Aston Martin like he wants the lead back. Let's see, what does Convoy do? Yep, he's definitely going to the inside. Almost went over the pit line there. He manages to keep it. You can see how aggressively he's driving towards that line. Wants to make the most. Means Andre is now the leader of the race and he's got quite the lead, 6 seconds, but he will be racing the man who just went into the pits. That is Convoy. Let's have a look. There he is. He's on the pit exit. He's about to get going once again. He's in P4. And now he's got to make those fresh set of hards work for him. Make sure he's setting quicker laps than Andre. And then every single lap Andre spends out there longer, he's going to be losing time. Of course, now we're going to have the opposite situation in those opening stages of the race. If you'll remember, we had the top 3 were on mediums, and Andre was doing a fantastic job in P4 on a set of hards to hold on to those top 3. Of course, we lost Divan, but now in the second stint of the race, it will be Andre that has the quicker compound. He's going to be finishing the race on the medium. So he should have the quicker tyre in the closing stages, or at least in the second stint. Red Bull, very aggressive there around turn 1, almost looked like he was going to lose it. That was Spikes, P2, his teammate, just down the road in P3, 9 seconds down the road. Then we have the only Alpine tonight, Convoy. Probably a good thing there's only one Alpine. Those cars like driving into each other. Thought we would see a collision today between Ocon and Gasly. Unfortunately not. Instead, we got a collision between the leaders. Andre, he is out front. That gap to Spikes, 6.7 seconds, then a further 7.8 seconds down to Mr. M. Then the man he's racing currently in P4. Didn't notice until now, but if you look at Mr. M, he's actually on a strange strategy. Seems like he came into the pits out of sync with everybody else. So he's also on the hard tyre, but those hard tyres are a lot fresher than the ones around him. So I don't think Mr. M will come into the pits at the same time as those two runners ahead of him. Let's just bring up your pit stops there. You can see Andre and Spikes, the two cars at the front. No pit stop from them yet, and as I say that, we see your leaders. Your leader Andre dives into the pits. Man in P2, Spikes, also dives into the pits. And now we'll see. Here is Convoy. He was leading the race. The gap was tiny. What will the gap translate to? Oh, and what a time to set the fastest lap of the race. When it's the most crucial of all. Convoy goes over the line, sets the fastest lap of the race. In a time when he's trying to undercut Andre, and he did undercut Andre. That gap was merely a few tenths of a second. Now it's 4.4 seconds. Rather 5.7 seconds with a car in between them. And I don't think Mr. M intends on pitting anytime soon. Just 9 laps on those hards. Playing a very different strategy to the cars around him. Not the first time Convoy has led this race, but this will be the first time he's leading comfortably. He's just got the free air, clean air in front of him. Doesn't need to worry about his mirrors. It's on the hard tyre. Man in P2 also on the hard tyre, but it's a older set. And then the man he was racing finds himself down in P3. Considering those hards can't take Mr. M right to the end of the race, then Andre would pick up that position. Further down the field, Virus in P4. Divan, man who was fighting for the lead at the start of the race. Actually for the entire first stint of the race, first 11 or 12 laps. Then he made that mistake. But with every lap that goes by, he tries to rectify that mistake. He's taken a position off of Spikes and goes up into P5. Of course, 5 laps on those hard tyres. He'll be looking to take those right to the end. Virus just ahead of him, 7 laps on his hard tyres, so slightly older. And the man towards the front with the quickest set of tyres is Andre. He's got a brand new set of mediums. Mr. M still in P2, not able to do much about the leader. That gap growing, it was 1.9 seconds, it's now 3.5. So Convoy not only growing the lap, he's growing the lap quite dramatically. Williams won't be happy to see both their cars at the rear of the field, 13 and 14. As I say that, Stoffel makes up a position. Wonder if you heard me. Convoy out front, Mr. M P2, Andre P3. Virus doing a good job. in P4. No safety cars in the race. So if you chose to underfuel, this is about the time in the race where you may start to look at the fuel gauge and start to panic. Austria is not the sort of racetrack you want to be doing fuel management. You don't want to be lifting on these long straights. If that is the case, then the only way you're going to be going is backwards. No way you can be competitive on this racetrack if you're managing fuel. Not in a field as close as this. Race has been predominantly very close, but after that last set of pit stops, things have really spread out, and Divan was trying to do a bit of a recovery drive. Now he's just made it more difficult for himself. 3 seconds will be added on to his race time. Convoy still out front, 5.8 seconds is the gap. Mr. MP2 not able to do anything about that leader, but now he's going to start coming under pressure for his P2. He's going to have to defend it. Andre in third place on the medium. He would have wanted to be a lot closer to the Alpine on that pit exit. His heart would have sank when he came out of the pit exit and saw a 4.7 gap to the leader. He's been able to close the gap up to P2. Now he's thinking about it, and he gets past easily. Not much fight from the Red Bull, so that's definitely not Max Verstappen in that Red Bull. Otherwise, we would have had both cars on the outside in the gravel. Andre up into P2, doing a fantastic job. Just go to the rear of the field, see what's happening at the rear of the field. We're going to bring up your penalty screen because there's so many on our... There we go, Chums at the rear of the field. He's got the most penalties of the night, sitting on 16 seconds. Rhino 13 on 3, Stoffel P12 also on 3. And we've got Top Gun P7 on 3, and Divan on a very concerning 6 seconds worth of penalties. Convoy out front. Andre P2. Mr. M still holding on to that podium position. Remember, he's a little out of sync with everybody else around him. And we have the first of the two Ferraris in P4. Spikes and Divan, they're next to each other on track. They're nowhere near each other on the timing sheets. Divan 6 seconds next to his name worth of penalties. He wouldn't lose any positions as things stand because Pantry Star is 11 seconds adrift. But that means any battles that he has now, any overtakes he makes now, he will potentially lose that position anyway. Really just deflates your race. Convoy out front. Andre P2 has been able to manage that Red Bull successfully, has he? Not quite. Red Bull still within DRS, and this is what I was speaking about earlier. Sometimes so difficult to break that DRS that you can make the overtake, but then your opponent's just going to keep coming at you. That's what Convoy's been able to do. He's been able to break that DRS train, and that's why he can just get further and further down the road. While the man in P2 needs to keep his eyes on his mirrors. Chums at the rear of the field. Big Rhino P13, Smurf 12, Stoffel P11. Those are the drivers out of the points. Skull in P10, picking up the 1 point so far. Picked up 1 point in the sprint race, would pick up 1 point in the feature race. His teammate having a much better evening, finished in P3 in the sprint race, and now he's looking at a potential P2 in the feature race. Wonder if he might have just used too much of those mediums too quickly, because he's on a 7-lap old set of mediums. Mr. M behind him is on a 16-lap old set of hards, and he's just not able to shake him off. Convoy still leads, still all alone out there on circuit. We're looking for anyone who's within DRS. Here's one of the cars within DRS, Divan chasing Spikes. But that is only a battle on the racetrack and not in the timing sheets. Next DRS battle on track is the battle for P2. Mr. M still trying to reclaim that position from Andre. He hasn't given up on it. I thought the driver on the medium compound would be able to get past and disappear down the road with the superior traction. Hasn't really been the case. He was able to get by, but he hasn't been able to shake off the Red Bull, and he hasn't been able to make any impact on that gap for the lead. Convoy may be having a very calm, boring race at the front now, but it hasn't always been that way. Remember, he had to earn this. Some very close racing in that first stint of the race. He had to deal with a lot of pressure to hold on to this position. He could have been one of the drivers that made a mistake. He could have been one of the drivers that had to be doing a recovery drive right now. But he was able to hold things together. We have a caution. Late stages of the race. Hopefully nothing more. Seems like a Salvo going awfully slowly. But he will regain his place on the tarmac, and the caution will then disappear. So Convoy leads the way from Andre, that gap 8.3 seconds. Mr. M still firmly within DRS. Then we have a gap down to the first of the two Ferraris in P4. It's followed by Spikes. Divan. There's a lot of penalties to deal with, but luckily for him, Top Gun is 15 seconds down the road and he has penalties to deal with of his own. So Divan should be able to hold on to P6. As soon as he brings this car over the checkered flag. Hopefully not over the checkered flag, over the start finish line. If he went over the checkered flag, I feel sorry for whoever's waving it. Gap at the front continues to grow, 8.4 seconds. And the Red Bull of Mr. M has not given up on P3. Keeps on fighting, keeps on probing, looking for a way past. Getting in the mirrors, the right hand mirror, the left hand mirror, wherever you look, you're going to see a Red Bull. Just apply the pressure, apply the pressure. You may not have the tyre to get past, but if you can force the mistake. Mr. M still looking for a way past. So close, hasn't really made a move just yet. This is probably the closest we've seen in DRS. He's not going to get close enough here into turn 1, but he's going to get DRS yet again. There we see the wing opening up. He's just not able to get close enough, is he? Unless he does a bit of a lunge. And there's none of that. Stays just behind the Aston Martin for now. He's obviously able to stay with him. I wonder if he's just got the grip in the corners. Convoy out front, 9 seconds now. That gap continues to grow, almost half a second a lap in the last 2 laps. Then we've got Andre P2, Mr. M P3, Spikes P4. So good evening so far for Red Bull P3 and 4. So a good night for the Mercedes team, Top Gun and Pantry Star, both within the top 10. If you're not going to win the race, the next best thing is having both cars in the points. Aston Martin hasn't been able to do much about the Alpine ahead of him. Definitely had the pace in the previous run, but this time around hasn't been able to stay with the Alpine. Had to deal with the Red Bull first, got past the Red Bull, just hasn't been able to shake him off, and as a result hasn't been able to put all of his attention on the leader, and the leader's been able to drive down the road to the final points paying position, that is Skull. Looks like he's comfortably going to hold on to that P10. Gap behind him 6 seconds, gap ahead of him almost 4. So not much hope in making positions at this stage, but also not much risk of losing positions at this stage. Convoy out front, Andre still under pressure, 0.3 of a second, cover P2 and P3. These positions are far from decided. Now Mr. M finally goes for the move. Was behind that Aston Martin, probably was getting tired of reading the sponsorship on the rear of that rear wing, and now he clears. Andre goes up into P2. He's got 22 lap old hard, so this is really impressive. Those tyres should be falling off a cliff, but he's able to fight for P2 and retake the position. Problem now for Andre is that he is on the medium. He's done 13 laps. We saw some drivers pitting as early as lap 12, lap 13 to get rid of those mediums. So those mediums will now start falling into that window where they're falling off, where they're losing pace, they're starting to slide around. First time you go into a corner and those tires do start to slip, your heart sinks into your stomach, and the next time you approach a corner, you don't have that same confidence. Just as you're about to throw the car in, you have a second thought in the back of your mind. Hold on, how is this going to feel? But Andre can't have any second thoughts in the back of his mind. If he's going to take P2 in this race, he's going to have to push right to the very end, push this Red Bull. Mr. M, for the time being, absorbing all of the pressure. He goes now into the penultimate corner and now into the final corner. He's going to have an Aston Martin all over the back of him. He's not going to get any DRS, of course. All the DRS is for the Aston Martin. Gets awfully close in turn 1. He's going to have another go at it. There we go, that wing very much open. I'm sure he wishes he could open it a little more. Just not getting close enough there in the braking zone. And now, it's now or never. Running out of time. This will be the last attempt, I believe. And if he can get it stopped, he does get it stopped. Closes the door on the Red Bull, but that's going to hurt his traction out of the next corner. It's going to be really close. Convoy, he's about to go over the line to take the checkered flag, but we're going to keep our eyes on the battle for P2. This looks like Andre's done just enough, has he? Penultimate corner, the Red Bull may come back at him. Thought better of it, jumped on the brakes, wasn't going to make the corner. Andre will hold on to P2. Mr. M over the line in P3, almost pulled off a masterclass at the end. Then the second Red Bull. Good evening for the Red Bull drivers, 3 and 4, and as I say that, Spikes must have had a penalty, because Virus is behind him on track but ahead of him on the timing screens. Still waiting for the likes of the two Mercedes. Top Gun's got a penalty next to his name, so he will lose that position to his teammate. So Pantry Star P7, Top Gun P8, the Mercedes swap around as a result of that. Porsche Cartoon actually goes over the line and takes P8 as well, so Top Gun falls down another position. And shortly we'll have your official results. Virus picks up the driver of the day. Here we go, to go through your results really quickly. Convoy, he had to pull off a masterclass in the first stint of the race, had to absorb so much pressure, but once he overcame that pressure, it was a matter of getting the car over the start finish line. Convoy takes the victory from Andre. Very strong drive in second place, had to fight off Mr. Rem right till the penultimate corner. Mr. Rem P3, Virus P4, Spikes, then Divan, Pantry Star, Porsche Cartoon, Top Gun missing out due to those penalties, Skull picking up the final point in P10, and then no points on the night for the likes of Stoffel, Smurf, Chums and Rhino. That was Season 8 Round 3. We had no safety cars and no retirements. Well done to everyone out on track. Well done to Convoy, Andre and Mr. M. Of course, top 3 drivers, as well as the driver of the day, are invited to the NFR cooldown room that is on the Discord server. You're more than welcome to join that room, and you will then be placed in the comms box one by one for a short question or two. As for everyone that has been watching this evening, thank you very much for joining us. It's always great to have returning viewers come back week after week. Of course, we do get more views after the race than we do get live. Now we're just gonna go have a look at that cool down room. See if anybody has decided to join, and we've got a few drivers that have decided to join. So we're going to bring in both of those drivers. So if you're listening to the stream, just remember to mute your TV or your phone, or if you're listening to the broadcast on YouTube, otherwise you're going to hear me twice and you're going to hear yourself in the background. There we go. So we have 2 drivers, driver of the day not showing up, P1 not showing up, but we do have Andre and Mr. M. Those are the 2 drivers that were fighting for P2 right to the very end. And you guys with us? Can you hear us?
Yes. Good evening.
There we go. Good evening to both of you. What a race at the end there.
Yeah, the whole race was quite tight. At a stage we tried to work together to catch Convoy, but yeah, that man is too fast.
Yeah, it was very quick.
There was actually a stint of the race. There was a stint of the race where the Aston Martin was matching him, but then after that, after the pits, there was not much anybody could do. He had broken the DRS, and then went one way. But Mr. M, what were you thinking there? Penultimate corner of the race, were you thinking lead? You backed out of it? Did you avoid a collision, or did you just... Were you thinking about it?
Well, I didn't want to repeat Max and Norris's collision today, so I I figured third is much better than nothing, right? So I tried my luck, but there was just not enough space there right at the end. But we had a good fight.
And then,
Yeah, it was enjoyable.
oh, I just noticed Andre's on an Xbox. I didn't know that. But Andre, you fought for the lead at a stage, but then after that pit stop,
Yep.
you got a car in between you and the leader, and you weren't able to come back. Took a few laps to get past the Red Bull, and then you weren't able to shake off the Red Bull.
Yeah, actually, when I started catching Mr. M, the convoy was already running the same pace as us. So then I knew we have to dig deep to catch up with him. But yeah, the odds felt very good, and I think they did a bit better strategy than me.
I actually thought you'd have the superior pace at the end there, with the medium. Mr. M was running a hard, and those hards were pretty old. How many laps did you have there at the end on those hards? They were
I
probably
was
over
doing
22 laps, something like that.
Yeah, they were going beyond 22. I think I ran a total of 24, maybe 25.
Andre, did your mediums fall off at the end?
Yeah, I did, but I think the hard tire was the superior tire tonight. Even when I was on the hards with a full tank of fuel, it felt much better than the mediums when I was in a half tank of fuel. So I think it actually
translated very well to real life, because this afternoon, basically all the drivers that started on the medium, they started lapping around lap 12. They started pitting around lap 12. So high deck track, and guess the hards were just the right one to be on. When do we see you guys back out on track? Andre, starting with you. Tier 1, Tier 2. Tomorrow night, Tier 1, straight away. And Mr. M?
Yeah, same for me.
Same. So
they were actually teammates, eh?
So your teammates.
Fight a bit less and work.
So maybe that's why there was a little bit of respect here tonight, and we didn't get a Lando Max. Actually, before I let you go, I'm going to ask you each, what did you think of that Austrian race? Do you think Max was in the wrong?
I think both of them were a bit over-aggressive. Both of them basically did the other one dirty, and I think the incident with Max, I think he was the wrong party there, but it could have gone anyway. It might have been Lando that made the same mistake because they were battling too hard, and then when the adrenaline is pumping, sometimes you do stupid things.
Obviously.
For me, yeah, I'm obviously a big Max, non-Max fan. No, I only like him when he races against your favorite driver.
Oh yes, my favorite driver.
Yeah. So I'm a big Lando fan, and obviously I'm a bit biased, but for me, Max was moving a bit too much in the braking zone, and he closed Norris off, and it could have been avoided.
I've been a Red Bull fan since the days when David Coulthard still drove a Red Bull, and I'm a massive Max fan. But in my opinion, he overdid it. There was too many times where he was defending way too aggressively. He was all over the race circuit, and then just prior to them making contact, he did maintain his position by going off the circuit. So when Lando said that the position should have been reversed, I think they should have been reversed. He stayed out front, and then a collision happened, and really the 10 seconds didn't do much for McLaren.
Yeah, that's a slap on the wrist. So.
And before you guys go, just a fun fact: Max Verstappen did an entire lap on 3 tires and still beat his teammate. So
and we actually joked about that.
He could have fit it again.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the second Red Bull, or maybe that's the pace of the Red Bull and the rest is Max. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
But thank you both. I hope to see you racing out on track for tomorrow just as aggressively as you were today. Thank you very much for
Well,
joining.
thanks.
Thanks
Thank
to
you.
all the viewers for joining, and we've added a few videos to the channel, so if you wanna keep busy, you can go have a look at some classic onboard action. It's actually done very well. We've got 15,000 views since Wednesday. So thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel, everyone who's left a like, and obviously everyone who comes back for each and every single race. We'll be back tomorrow night with these two, and hopefully they won't be in the gravel. Until then, cheers guys.
Amanda, thanks for your efforts as well. You do